Hello and welcome back to Project Firelight, a devlog series where I'm taking an old game of mine and making it actually playable. If you feel like it, watch my last video for a better introduction. Okay, so here we are, devlog number 1, and I really have my work cut out for me. So after I uploaded my last video, I actually started a different project. I started a separate game called You Can't Smoke in Here. It's just a very simple game where the player tries to stealthily smoke cigarettes without getting caught. And when I was making it, I was starting to feel guilty about working on this one instead of Firelight, but it was actually really helpful. It got me back into how the whole engine works and just made it easier to fall back into this other project. So after playing a few horror games in my free time to get inspiration. Oh, that's a bad knock. Oh! Okay, that got me. No! I'm not in, no! Oh my god, go, you numpty! Oh my god! I opened up Project Firelight, and the first thing I noticed was how long it took to open this file. So I had a little peek, and yeah, it turns out that it's a whopping 20 gigabytes, so I had to get rid of some stuff. I'm very guilty of just kind of downloading every asset pack that has one item that I think I'll use at some point, but never even using any of them. And speaking of asset packs, this game will be made of 100% free assets from Sketchfab and the Unity store, and maybe ones I make myself along the way. I guess we'll see. I work minimum wage, so I don't have the funds to be paying to make this. The first thing I tried to do to lower the size of the file was go through each folder individually, deleting every item that I didn't think I used. I realized there was two issues with this. One, it would take ages to go through each folder, deleting things individually, and two, knowing me, I had to delete something that was very important, so that was off the table. So the next thing I tried was just starting a new project and copy pasting all the stuff I would need over, but of course this meant I was missing some tiny files that actually helped the game run without realizing it, so this was also out the window. So, you know, third time's the charm. This time I found out about exporting things, which is crazy. You can export the entire scene. It'll include all the assets and scripts that you need to make it run. So that's what I did, just drag that over into the new project, and Bob your uncle, it was working. I got from over 20 gigabytes to just under 2 gigabytes. So, you know, I'm laughing. Okay, I'm realizing now I haven't really explained what Firelight is. It's a first-person survival horror game where the player traverses a labyrinthian castle filled with repeating hallways and rooms in search of the King's Crown. It uses a retro aesthetic, sort of PS2 style graphics, because I'm just a sucker for nostalgia. I'm basically just into anything retro, whether it's my collection of videotapes. I've got old classics, new classics, ones I've made myself. I have 2 video players, and also, of course, my film cameras. I collect DVDs, so nostalgia, I think, can be used as a tool in games design. It's actually what I wrote my dissertation on in uni, but at this point in time, it's very, very, very overused, especially in the horror genre. Every horror game from an indie dev slaps a CRT filter on top of it and markets it as a blast from the past, and I'm being a hypocrite. But despite using retro aesthetics, I want to incorporate some new and unique elements into it, which is where my next actual game edit comes into play. I really want this game to have little to no HUD. I want it to be fully immersive, but still tell the player what's going on with their stats clearly. And to do this, I'm using a candle. The candle is the player's main source of light, but also more. Before I quit the project originally, I just added the stamina mechanic. Basically, if the player sprints for too long, they drain their stamina, and as their stamina drains, the candle withers and dies. But when I was playing through the game, there was a few changes I wanted to make. First of all, after the candle burnt out, the player was still able to run, which kind of negates the whole idea of having stamina. So I edited the code, and now when the player's candle's out, they can't sprint. But then the next issue appeared. Like most other games, I'd originally wanted the stamina to regenerate naturally, but it just doesn't work with the candle being blown out. It looked really strange to see the candle just start flickering to life again. So I once again edited the code so that the only way the player can gain their stamina back is to relight the candle.
I also added another couple of lines just to make sure the player can relight the candle even if the candle wasn't fully out, because when I've had people test the game, I've realized they've tried to do that and, you know, give the people what they want. So after I had the stamina working the way I wanted it, I had to come up with an immersive way to show the player health. Now, just to go off on a wee tangent, anytime I come up with ideas, it's always on paper. I have a million notebooks that are filled with various ideas for games or projects, and I think it's a very important part of my own personal design process. I think David Lynch put it most succinctly when he said,
"If a person forgets an idea that they love, it's a horror, and it could lead to a real yearning to commit suicide."
So I started jotting down some ideas and finally landed on having the candle wax melt as the player loses health. Not only does it stay immersive, but it means that to have the player regain health, you have to find candles to burn, which is a lot more unique than having them find a bandage or a potion. But here I ran into another issue. The candle asset I was using was just one object, which meant I couldn't manipulate just the candlestick. So I had to hunt for a new asset that was made up of a few different objects. Finally, I found one on Sketchfab and brought it in. At first I'd been sad to see the original candle go. I thought it matched the aesthetics so well, and it's been in for a while, but this new candlestick absolutely blew it out the water. Not only does it look good, but it also works a lot better for these new health mechanics. So I got to work coding the player health and having the candle react accordingly. It took a few tries to get the code right, but eventually I got it working. At this point I had no way of dealing damage to the player, so I duplicated one of the hallway segments and added an NPC that I'd been working on before leaving this project to rot. So this NPC is just a simple prisoner. He's made up of a whole bunch of still images from different angles. This creates a 2D character in a 3D space, kind of inspired by Doom, which I think looks awesome. It's still not perfect, but it does the job for now, and I'll get more into the NPC creation process in a separate log. So I added a trigger collider on the NPC and added a script that would deal the damage to the player, and lo and behold, it worked like a charm. But this is where I made a crucial mistake. I said in the intro to this series that the reason I gave up on this project originally was because I got too bogged down in aesthetics, and well, I fell into old habits. I noticed that the NPC didn't react to the light in the scene because it's not a 3D object, it's a sprite renderer. Not a big deal, especially at this point in time, but I was feeling confident I could fix it. So I looked online and found out that if I used the universal render pipeline, I could give the sprite renderer a new material that would make it react to light, meaning it wouldn't stick out like a sore thumb at the end of the hallway. I mean, it did warn me online that it would mess up a lot of materials and especially variants, of which I have a million, but I hedged my bets and installed the URP, converting all of my materials to use the URP shader, and I tested the game, and yeah, basically, I gave myself a massive headache just so I could make one NPC that doesn't even work properly as it is look a little bit better. I came to my senses and uninstalled the URP, but alas, the variants were lost to time. Materials are something that I really suck at in games design. I mean, you can tell just from the gameplay that the tiling is off on each object, and that's because I was going through each object with the same material, creating a variant and changing the tiling manually, but installing the URP made it all just kind of fall apart. So after this fiasco, I planned on just giving in and ending the log here, but it wasn't until I was editing that I realized that for a first devlog, this was really pretty bare. So don't get me wrong, I was proud I'd actually started working on it, but I wanted more to show you guys. So I started working on it more. I did some quick fixes for the missing materials. They still don't look great, but they'll work for now. The next thing I wanted to add, which to be fair is more for aesthetics than anything, was a death screen. When the player lost all their health, nothing happened, and I wanted there to be something to bring this player health chapter to an end. So I had a vision of what I wanted to create. I mentioned in passing that this game is based off a dream I had a while ago and really wanted to keep that theming. I also didn't like the idea of the character dying and respawning, so instead I decided that the player would fall asleep. I spent a while trying to create the right animation for the eyes closing effect, tried using vignettes to make it look more realistic, but for now it's simply just two bars that enter from the top and bottom and meet in the middle. I also wanted text to appear to allude that the player fell asleep. While I do want a minimal HUD, the menus were going to have text and options for the players to press. So I spent a while scrolling through dafont.com to find exactly what I envisioned and created this screen. Very simple, one main title telling the player what happened, a second subheading that would tell the player what they dreamed about, which I'll get more into in a second, and lastly there are two options, wake or succumb, Simply put, respawn or quit. Now, the subheading, while not necessarily needed, adds to the overall aesthetic of the game. It adds an air of mystery and then keeps with the themes, but I didn't want it to have the same piece of text every time. So I wrote a short script that would cycle through a few texts that I had written. The plan is to eventually utilize this as a hint for the player. So let's say they'll be told that they dream about a grand library. When they wake up and find that room, they'll discover something needed to progress in there, and so on. Just so the player isn't left wandering aimlessly and getting bored when nothing seems to happen. After adding the death screen, I was on a roll, and I wanted to add a few more things. I drew up some plans for a player inventory where the HUD would once again be immersive, but realised that aiming for immersion right now would only get me stuck and give up again. So I set up the code so that the player could find certain objects and click on them to pick them up. A candle, some gold or whatever. So I got an outline pack from the Unity asset store, and after a bit of fiddling got it working. Now if the player's crosshair covers an item that they can pick up, it has a yellow outline. The next thing to sort was the inventory system. My mind was overflowing with ideas and inspirations for how I wanted it to work, the main one being a belt. It would be a belt that the player wears that can carry a select amount of items. Not only would it remain immersive by having the player look down at their belt and select an item, but it would also cause tension, not being able to look around while they pick something to use. But like I said, right now it's about getting the skeleton finished before adding the flesh. That's a really strange way of putting that, but yeah. So I went for a simple mouse scroll selector. The player scrolls their mouse wheel to select an item and presses E to use it. While it's not the best looking or the most immersive, it works, and that's what's important. And that's where I'm going to end the vlog. Thank you for watching. I'm still not sure on what editing style I want to go with for these, because I usually just edit short films or gameplay edits, so it's really new to me. So bear with me as I find my feet, what style I want to use. I am excited to keep this project going and would love to hear any feedback you all might have for me. Whether it's about the game itself or my videos, your comments will always be greatly appreciated. In the next part, I'm going to be working on designing some more rooms and really setting down the lore of the game, which I'm really excited to talk about. Anyway, thanks again for watching, and I hope you'll stick around to see more of Project Firelight. Take care.